Hi, you're joining us here in Louth at Cadwell Park. This is the final round of the Thundersport GB Championship 2016.
Thanks to Sarah and Kirsty. Here we are then for the final round of 2016 for the Aprilia Superteens, and it is all to play for. After a dramatic day at the office here yesterday, Jack Scott has given himself a chance. We came into Cadwell Park. Rhys Irwin, number 66 there, had a 36-point lead, but after yesterday it's all changed. Rhys Irwin had a fall. Jack Scott won one race and finished second in the other. Of course, they're at the back end of this grid that you're looking at with the 450s ahead of them. What it means is, coming into this race here today, Rhys Irwin has just a 10-point lead over Jack Scott with 2 races to go. It's been a while since we have had Superteen championships that have gone down to the final day. And quite possibly, depending on how results go here, the final race as well. We're on board here with Rhys Irwin then. Younger brother, of course, to Keelan, who's out at the sharp end of this one in the 450s. He's the rider that's in control. He needs to just try and follow Jack Scott home, you could argue, in these 2 races. But in conditions like this, anything can happen. And there is Jack Scott, who's just gone past him. They're both on slightly different machines, of course, if you've not joined us so far this season. The traditional, I suppose, Aprilia 125 production motorcycle there that's just being overtaken by Jack Scott. And then you've got Rhys Irwin on board with him now on the Aprilia RRV 450R, which is the restricted version of the 450. Sits here with me in the commentary box. It's hard to believe that this championship is still going, but it's just toed and froed. It's gone one way, then the other, just as it seems to be in this race right now.
Yeah, but, well, they're kids, aren't they? You know, despite the advice that both of them have been given, they're absolutely, when they put their leg across these bikes, they completely ignore everything that old farts like me and their mothers and fathers and team directors tell them, and they're just going to race. That's it. I mean, all weekend, all that Rhys Irwin had to do, having been gifted it after Jack had the weekend to forget at Donington, and it was a weekend to forget. You know, he had it all in the bag, and all he had to do was follow Jack home in every race, and job done. But no, not listening to us.
Well, he's just had a front end wobble there and a warning as well, because a 450 rider, Connor Sellers, has gone down. There's a bike in the middle of the circuit as Jack Scott goes one side of it. You saw there Jody Fieldhouse going another side of it as well. And Rhys Irwin here, who we're on board with, just looking up ahead, is at the moment in 3rd place. Just up ahead of him is Jake Clark, who's in 2nd. And it looks like Jack Scott there, here he is, number 55, is just alongside him as well. So this is an interesting one. Max Lofthouse, another rider to keep an eye out for in this race, number 24, who is in fact leading this race. If you can just about see through the rain and the mist and the wind here at Cadwell, number 24, Max Lofthouse it is that is then leading. So we're on board here with Rhys Irwin, who's now in 4th place. Up ahead of him, his championship rival, Jack Scott. Jake Clark in 2nd. As it stands then, Jack Scott in 3rd, Rhys Irwin 4th. Jack Scott would pull 3 points on his title rival, which would mean that we would go into the final race later on with 7 points between them. But you just get a feeling there's an awful lot that could still happen as yet in this race as we now come into the new chicane.
Yeah, the story is not over. Right to the final round, and possibly, as you say, the final race. I'll tell you who's come on quite strong this year, really impressed me, has been Jake Clark, you know, Steve.
Yeah, Jake Clark, has the results have been getting better and better, closer and closer to those podiums, and as you can see here, now up fighting for a race win with Max Lofthouse. There is Lofthouse, number 24, and just up behind is Jake Clark, number 13. Here is Rhys Irwin, just coming through Hall Bends. He's behind Jack Scott still at the moment. He's just going through. There's waved yellows there, so there's another rider down. We're on board now with Rhys, and we're coming up to another bike that's in the middle of the road. One of the 450s.
Slippery here, isn't it? That section, you know, it's like, it's high side city, isn't it?
Well, Reese has had a couple of warnings there. That was weird. Both Max Lofthouse and Jake Clark, almost like synchronised swimmers, having a look over on their right, just as they go past the start-finish straight. Probably praying to see the checkered flag at this moment in time, as is Reese Irwin here, who we're right on board with into turn 1, really pushing. And now we tip right. Reese Irwin, of course, leading this championship still as it stands. Tipping now into Charlie's corner and onto the back straight. So, somewhere here, you've got your race leader, Max Lofthouse, followed by Jake Clark. And it should be Jack Scott, followed by Jodie Fieldhouse, who's now got herself up ahead of Reese. So Reese is losing ground all the time here. You see on your screen, this needs to finish the race, more importantly than anything else, but he's struggling a bit here. Jodie Fieldhouse has got past him. He's pulling away. Now into the gooseneck. Downhill into Mansfield corner. Tricky corner this. Bit of standing water just at the bottom as well, of course. Downhill corner.
Let's just listen to this, because it just seems a bit funny that he doesn't mind the wet, Reese, and I'm just wondering whether that bike sounds a bit iffy, you know, Steve.
Yeah, strange, because he's been very, very good in the wet, hasn't he, of late? So maybe some problems there for Reese. It would be a pretty awful time, wouldn't it, to run into trouble with the machinery. With a 10-point lead overall. Out front, I suppose the only saving grace, I suppose, for Reese at the moment is the fact that at least it's not Jack Scott leading this race.
No, exactly, yeah.
Because that would add insult to injury. It's Max Lofthouse there still up ahead of number 13, Jake Clark. But there is Jack Scott. And then Jodie Fieldhouse, who's flying through. Here we are on board with Reese! Oh no! The championship leader's gone down! Well, he's had a few warnings. He's absolutely livid. He's seen a few riders down already at that particular section of the circuit, and I bet he cannot believe it. A 36-point lead he came into this championship round, the final round with. And as it stands now, he's going to go into the final race of the season with a deficit.
Now, I wonder if Jack will be notified of this.
Well,
will he see his pit board? Will they tell him?
See, at this level, you wouldn't think that they've got pit boards saying that there's actual riders out. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Could be a code, though, couldn't it?
Well, most people have on their pit board out. They do have out there to put on their board. I suppose they could put the number there, but there you see Jodie Fieldhouse has gone up into third place ahead of Jack Scott. It's Max Lofthouse that leads this one. So Jack Scott, either way, isn't going to be picking up the maximum points.
I tell you what, Jodie will be feeling pretty good about that. Won't she? Overtaking Jack Scott, because I mean Jack is actually very good here, isn't he?
You can see there, Jack Scotty's having a big long look over his shoulder. He's given up on this, by the looks of things, this battle for third place, or has he? But he had the longest of looks over his shoulder.
Did he?
No doubt looking for Reese Irwin.
Yeah.
So I wonder if he already knows what has happened here. And I think he's given up on this battle out front. He knows the conditions himself, and I think he's being wise and saying, do you know what? I'm just going to finish this because I will be the unlikely championship leader going into the final race of the season. As it stands, he'd be fourth. He would take 13 points. It would mean that he would be 3 ahead going into the final race. On to the start-finish straight we go. Well, there's his pit board. There's a lot of information going on there, and I bet he knows now. Last lap flag is out. Awful conditions here for the Superteens, and this championship is going to the final race of the season. It's been a long time since we've said that. I think the last time we mentioned it at Donington was probably Tom Oliver and Joe Francis when they fought out in the final round. It was won by a single point and a cigarette paper on the line at Mallory Park. We could be in for a similar thriller. Here is your race leader then, Jake Clark now ahead of Max Lofthouse and Jodie Fieldhouse there in third. Jack Scott in fourth is on for 13 points. It'll give him a 3-point lead going into the final race of the season. Down through the gooseneck and into Mansfield now. These 3 riders all going. It's so rare this season that you have a race where you don't see either Jack Scott or Reese Irwin actually on the podium. Into the chicane we go. There is Jake Clark. You mentioned how well he's been going. Well, brilliant job from him. Jodie Fieldhouse doesn't look like she's quite given up yet on that chase for second place. into the bottom of the mountain. And oh, she's lost the front. She's tucked the front, Jodie Fieldhouse. Well, desperately unlucky for her, but of course it means that Jack Scott now inherits third place.
You couldn't write this, could you?
Jack Scott's going to take a 6-point lead then into tomorrow, courtesy of Jodie Fieldhouse pushing too hard on the final lap. Are these guys going to make it round? The checkered flag awaits. Jake Clark with a brilliant win in horrible conditions here. Brilliantly done by him. 13, goes across the line. The rider from Bromsgrove takes the win here at Cadwell Park. It's going to be second for Max Lofthouse. Jack Scott will take a 6-point lead into the final race. He finishes third. Harry Lee finishes in fourth. And Jack Hart, the newcomer, in fifth overall. You cannot write this stuff. And there you see on the podium, Jake Clark, the race winner from Max Lofthouse, and Jack Scott.
Well, after an incredibly bad Donington, then suddenly, amazingly, it all comes back to you at this round. And this story just never ends, Jack.
Yeah, we sort of needed this bit of luck at the end of the round, considering what happened at Donington. Yeah, I can't really believe it. Winning championship now, but one more race to go. Just need to keep going.
6-point lead.
Yeah, just need to keep going. I don't know. Yeah.
It's really exciting for us standing on the sidelines, I can tell you.
Yeah, I was just hoping that the bike was spluttering the whole way around the race. I was just hoping the bike was to come to the end. And I saw Reece went out, so I was just like, oh, I just wanted to get the race over and done with. The longest 9 laps of my life.
Yeah, well, and then you were in 4th place, and then poor Jodie fell off.
Yeah, she was flying. She came past me. I was like, well done. And then I saw her crash. I was like, oh, but unlucky to Jodie. So, yeah. And
people to thank, mate.
Yeah, all the sponsors. Thank them all year. Especially a big thanks to all my family, Mum, Dad, Wesley, my 2 little helpers, Leo and Harry. Tony for all he's done, and just everyone who's done everything for me.
Max, well, you're having an incredible weekend, aren't you? You obviously like Cadwell.
Yeah, well, we had a... I don't know how to say this. We had quite good luck in the first race. I mean, I fell asleep below, and it just didn't go right. But today, we've had the weather's. I don't like to say it's been on our side, but we're quite good in the wet. But the bike's been up to a bit of trouble. It's been coughing and spluttering, but I managed to carry on and bagged a second. Yeah.
It sounds like everybody's bike has been coughing and spluttering. But who have you got to thank, Max?
I'd just like to thank my mum, my dad, Dunlop, Ian for the bike, lending it us, and Aprilia, really.
Jake, well, first ever win.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great race. I seemed to perform better in the wet, so I was loving it, yeah.
What do you put that down to?
I think everybody's a bit like overcome by the rain, but you've just got to stick at it, I think.
But they do grip well in the wet, don't they?
Yeah, the tyres are amazing.
Yeah, I think if you relax, this is probably what you're doing. You're probably relaxing, and everybody's all a bit stiff. Who have you got to thank?
Shoei, Furigan, TCX Boots, Bob and Mandy, my mum and dad, and all the marshals and medics, of course, and you guys.
We will be back in just a few moments to decide the Superteen Championship for 2016.
We're at Dunlop Motorsports Technical Centre in the United Kingdom, and this is the place where we design, develop and manufacture some of the tyres that are used by winning riders and winning drivers all around the world. All the Moto 2 tyres are made here in Birmingham, they're designed here, all the development work happens here, and they're manufactured under the roof of our technical centre. So the design process for the tyres actually starts with modelling the tyre. I mean, we use processes such as FEA, finite element analysis, which enables us to model the tyre on the screen, but also to model the forces that are going through the tyre before we actually build a tyre and put it into real testing. The first stage of making a Moto 2 tyre is the mixing of the compound. We tend to mix compounds in batches of, say, 100 grams, so you'll have a recipe for each compound. Now, compound is a mixture of all the raw ingredients: natural rubber, synthetic rubber, silica, which improves the wet performance, and some of the other magic formula compounds that we add into there. So the way the mixer works, it's a bit like a giant food mixer. The compound goes into the machine, it's mixed in the machine, and what we see coming out of the machine is like a sticky, licoricey kind of material, which is then stored in strips and again allowed to cool for a specific period of time before it then goes on into the next stage, which is to have it cut into a shape that's useful for tyre building. People think that a tyre is just made of rubber, but there's also other materials that go into a tyre, such as fabric. And what we see here is material going through a process that we call calendaring, which is where we mix materials such as fabric with rubber, so it sticks to the other rubber components in the tyre. And here we're having it cut into precise shapes that will then build the components in the tyre at the next stage of building. The second stage of making a Moto 2 tyre is building the carcass of the tyre. The process is a very labour-intensive process. We can see that the operator is being guided by the lasers above him to get the components in exactly the right place. When we get feedback from our testing and our development, we can change the dimensions, the thickness of the materials, lots of different permutations in order to give the rider the confidence that he needs in order to perform on the track. Third stage in building a Moto 2 tyre is to bring together the carcass of the tyre to meet the compounds that have come from the mixing machine. The carcass of the tyre is put onto the second stage building machines, and the compounds are applied as a strip onto the tyre. We see the operator being guided by laser guides. He's applying the compound into the specific areas of the tyre. The compound can go on in very thin strips, so you can have a specific type of compound on a very specific part of the tyre in order to give the grip. We can even make asymmetric compounds here, and with a multitude of different tread compounds across the whole width of the tyre. When we get to the final stage, which is called moulding or curing, we've also got the option of how long do we leave the tyre in the oven for. We can cook it at any temperature for any length of time. So this is a stage where it not only cures all the materials that are inside the tyre, but it also moulds it. So the tyre that comes out of the mould is the finished product. It's got the sidewall stamping on it with the Dunlop logo and the size on there. And if it's a wet tyre, it's also the place where the grooves and the distinctive grooved wet weather pattern is put into the tyre. This factory, we make 250,000 racing tyres a year, and they're supplied not only to MotoGP, but also to other major bike events. And they're the areas where we develop tyres, because we're in open competition with the other tyre companies. And that's where we can develop some of the new constructions and compounds that give us some really useful learnings for a one-brand championship like Moto 2 and Moto 3 in the future.
Well, the sun's out, it's still pretty cold here, and the circuit is a bit patchy, I think it's fair to say, ahead of the final round of the Superteen Championship in 2016. Jack Scott here, somehow, it has a 6-point lead over that young man there, Rhys Irwin. He's shaking his head. He must be wondering what on earth is going on. The 450s, of course, will roll off first. Steve Day here with Sid in the commentary box. Sid, I can barely believe what's happened here myself. 36-point lead Rhys Irwin had coming into this weekend. It's now a 6-point deficit. He's got to win the race and hope that Jack Scott finishes third or lower.
Looks like Jack's got a crap start there. He sort of lobbed it off the line and into the air, which is not good for a super team. But yeah, I mean, you couldn't write this one, could you? I mean, the last round, last race. It's been a while since we had a result decided this way in the super teams.
Well, Rhys Irwin can only now just try and win the race and hope that other things go on behind him. Thanks for your expert analogy on Jack Start's race start. there from the line as
Well,
well.
at least I said it properly, Steve, eh?
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. Are you still wearing those teeth in for the dog? Or?
I borrowed them from you.
You did indeed.
Rhys Irwin we're on board with on the Scott Racing Motorcycles machine as we now head into the gooseneck. Oh, he looked absolutely gutted, didn't he? And the sad thing is for Rhys at this moment, is because Jody Fieldhouse went down on that final lap whilst in third, that's really changed the complexion here, because those extra 3 points have made a big difference, because now it's sort of out of Rhys Irwin's hands. He's got to win a race and hope Jack finishes third, whereas if Jody Fieldhouse hadn't have fallen, he could have won the race and won the championship.
Yeah. There was all sorts of permutations. And, you know, Jack's quite a switched on little chap, tall chap now actually, but you know, he'll know the score, and I can bet you one thing. I bet you that unlike the way Rhys did, I bet that Jack doesn't challenge him for the lead. I bet he'll sit behind.
Well, we'll see what happens. He's behind him at the moment. He knows that he can just follow him home, and it's the championship. I mean, it's one thing following home when there's still a few races left, but this is it. There's no more races after this. Jack Scott knows that if he just sits behind him, he is the champion. But what about what goes on behind him as well? We must keep an eye on these two. Max Lofthouse, number 24, and Jake Clark, the race winner from earlier. If they start to come into form here late on in this race, anything could happen. And of course, we should just remind you, and with fingers crossed, of course, for Rhys' sake, that if he repeats what he did in race 1, that is it. Curtains for the championship. He has to stay on board. He has to finish ahead of Jack Scott. And as well, he needs a couple of riders just to be thrown into the mix. There is Max Lofthouse. He's just pulled a bit of a gap now on Jake Clark. Further back, we wait for the rest of the Superteens, and there you can see number 20, Jack Hart, just up ahead of Jody Fieldhouse. And we've got Harry Lee there as well.
It's worth mentioning that this is quite an important championship to win, actually, because it's actually the last ever, after 20 years, Aprilia Superteens Challenge Championship. And from next year onwards, the Thundersport Superteens will include other makes of bike. So you can run a Kawasaki Ninja, you can run a KTM 390. Go on the website, you'll see all the different bikes that you can actually compete in the as well as the 450R and the RS125 still. But there's a regalia of bikes that you can now come on, because we believe that it's most important for all the kids to race together, and that is the important thing. And so that's what we're going to let in next year.
Good to see Jake Clark there battling away a moment ago with Max Lofthouse here for these spots, but Rhys Irwin leads the race from Jack Scott. What we should just say though, I mean, in terms of the Aprilia Superteens, how brilliant they have been, and a big thanks of course to Ian and Myra Newton and Jimmy and everyone that's been involved. I mean, what stars that have come out of that. It's great that the Superteens will still exist, of course. We still have that production class for youth to kind of develop, but in terms of the Aprilia name, we have seen some fantastic stars come through the Aprilia Superteen system.
20 years, Steve. 20 years. Actually been the most successful one-make series in the world. And of course, you're absolutely right, Steve. This is largely down to in competition, which is Ian Newton, his lovely wife Myra, Jimmy, all the other people, going right back to when Superteen started. In fact, I remember you starting your good self in the year 2000 in the same way. It's just been an absolutely fabulous series to start kids off for their careers all over the world. And when you think Cal Crutchlow started in this Superteen Championship actually in 99, I believe, and he's just like this year recently won 2 MotoGPs. It's been an absolutely fantastic series, but this is not the end per se. This is just the beginning.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens in the future, and we're about to see who's going to be crowned the 2016 champion as well. As it stands, Jack Scott is still in second place here in this race, which will be enough. There he is. to be crowned the champion. There's a big gap then, but it is closing to Jake Clark and Max Lofthouse. Lofthouse there just not quite able to keep up with Jake Clark since he's got past him. So Jake Clark closes that gap down. Here we see the race leader, Rhys Irwin. He knows what he's got to do, and he's doing it. He's winning the race. Jack Scott, I mean, he'll be just praying that Jack Scott runs into some trouble here in the latter stages. Here is Jack Scott. He probably isn't pushing quite as hard as he knows he can, but he of course does know that as it stands he is in a perfect position. I wonder how long it will be before Jack Scott starts getting some information on his pit board about Jake Clark closing. Might not be too far away, because that of course then throws a completely different complexion. I had a chance to commentate on the Asia Talent Cup not so long ago, Sid, and I've never seen anything like it. The final race of the season, 3 or 4 different championship winners threw it away on the last lap. Others were coming into play. There were others who were watching from the sidelines that all of a sudden then could become champion again. So it just goes to show you anything can happen. But as it stands at the moment, despite these brilliant efforts from Rhys Irwin, unless Jack Scott comes into some trouble, it's not going to be enough.
But you have to understand that they're youngsters, and I mean they can't have the wisdom of an older person. And in fact, even older riders don't necessarily have that much wisdom, often as not. But this is these are kids racing, and they've got to be allowed to do what they want to do, to come and race. Last lap, here we go. This is going to be the one. And yeah, they've got to go out there and they've got to enjoy it, and they've got to be allowed to enjoy it.
Well, this is unbelievable, Sid. Sorry to interrupt, but as we just see the last lap flag there, Jack Scott, to say he's rolled off is an understatement. Rhys Irwin leads, but Jack Scott has rolled off, trying to just cruise this home. He's got to be careful, though, because Jake Clark's not that far behind. Now, we're looking here at Rhys Irwin. He's half a lap away from winning this race. Here's Jack Scott. Now, let's keep an eye on Jake Clark. Look at him. He's on a Sunday cruise. And look at Jake Clark behind him. He's closed right up. Now, Jack Scott, I don't know if he even knows what's happening here. Look at this.
This could change everything.
Well, if he finishes in third, Rhys Irwin is the champion. They break down into Mansfield. Rhys Irwin doesn't know what's going on, of course. He's just continuing on as he should. But Jack Scott is inviting some pressure here late on to his own shoulders. And here is Jake Clark. Does he know?
My goodness.
He knows now. And look at that, all of a sudden, he gets his gloves off. He's gone, oh my word. He's telling him to sit behind him. It doesn't quite work like that, I'm afraid, Jack. Unless, of course, you have him as an alliance on your side. Unbelievable. Jack Scott here. Well, for a moment, he just lost the championship altogether. And then all of a sudden woke up and said, hang on, this isn't supposed to happen. He had the audacity to tell someone to sit behind him, and it seems to have worked. I mean, I don't know if there was... What on earth is going on here? But Jack Scott here has just got to work now through these final few corners. Bizarre way to finish this championship season. Rhys Irwin, well, he'll exit the final turn. He sees the checkered flag. He is the race winner. I suppose we better wait and see what happens further back as Rhys Irwin takes the win, but unfortunately it doesn't look like he's going to be taking the championship. Here is Jack Scott. He's still pushing his luck a little bit, but across the line he goes. He takes second place ahead of Jake Clark, and that will be the championship for him. So congratulations to Jack Scott. Jake Clark finishes in third. It's fourth for Max Lofthouse, fifth for Jody Fieldhouse, and sixth for Harry Lee. On the podium there you see a happy Rhys Irwin despite the championship ending. Jack Scott second, Jake Clark third. Here's confirmation. Jack Scott wins it by a single point after 34 races. Congratulations to him, commiserations to Rhys.
Jake, well, another podium place. You've got to be pleased with that at the final round.
Yeah, it's been a great weekend. I've loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. And people to thank?
Mum, Dad, everyone at home, all the Thundersport marshals and medics, and yeah, it's been a great season.
Jack, well, many congratulations. You won the championship by one measly point after all these rounds, all these races. How do you feel?
I can't really explain how I feel right now. Shame Rhys crashed in yesterday, but yeah, winning championship, can't explain how I feel right now. It's awesome.
Well, it's something that all the Superteen champions that have progressed on, they've always been proud of, to have this championship on their CV, haven't they?
Yeah, Casey Stoner, all those Cal Crutchlow. It's just Jack Scott on the CV, so it's good.
That is absolutely excellent. And you obviously, on the way, you've got people to thank that have helped you all the way along.
Oh yeah, obviously got mum, dad, all the sponsors, just everyone, Leo, Harry, my sister, everyone who's came to support me, and also the marshals, Thundersport, Aprilia and Dunlop. They've just been a massive help all year. I can't thank it enough.
Well, we know that you're going to go to Moto 3 in the British Championship, so we'll keep our eye on you.
Yeah, cheers. I'll hopefully come and do another round or something like that next year.
Excellent. Well done, mate.
Cheers, thank you.
Ah, Reese, what can I say? But look on the bright side. I mean, there's nothing to be ashamed of there. What, 1 point?
Yeah, like it's been a long season. I've had a lot of help throughout the season, just my brother and everything. And it's just, like I lost it by 1 point and I came into this weekend 30 points ahead. And throughout the year I've been taken out for over 50 points. And in the first race weekend I was taken out, and if I wasn't taken out, like it was just an act of desperation at the end of the race. And if I wasn't taken out I would have the championship won, but that's racing, isn't it? Like, and just as how it happened, like I just can't control it.
You certainly couldn't write this, what has happened, the way it's gone backwards and forwards. I mean, to go back a few rounds, the way it's ebbed and flowed and points-wise, I mean, you just couldn't have written it.
Oh yeah, like it's been a crazy year, like, and I'm just a bit gutted now at the moment, like, cause 1 point, like in that last race, just went out and just sort of give it everything, ended up winning by half a lap nearly, and just cleared out, but he just knew he had to sit there in second, so.
Well, as I say, it's nothing to be ashamed of, missing it by 1 point and winning the very, very last race of the season. In the meantime, who have you got to thank that helped you all the way along?
Yeah, I've loads of people to thank. I'd just like to apologise for my team, Trevor Scott, Gary Fleming, my dad, everyone that's been here supporting me, like just for letting down just by 1 point. And then just like to thank everyone, James Gallagher and Oasis Power, who've been behind me all year, like, and I'm sorry I couldn't take home the big trophy. And then just Wesley Regan, Grace Ann Regan, Clean Rubber, and just everyone else been helping me. It's been a good year.
Trust me, Reese, you have not let anybody down, trust me.
Thank you, Sid.
That's it then, the end of another season. Thanks for joining us here in 2016. We'll be back at Brands Hatch in 2017.